Am I the only one who? And and I just watched a new. Here's something. Here's something I should clarify. Is I'm one of those people who was with the Chris Chan thing from nearly the beginning. I wasn't on Reddit or I've never been on Reddit or the Kiwi Farms or anything, but on an old message board I was on near the beginning of when he was discovered, pretty early on, we had in the gaming section we had a thread devoted to the Sonic Chew comics and trying to figure out because a lot of us thought, including me, we were like, okay, this guy has to be like this guy. It has to be an act, right? And so we did all, and so yeah, I was one of those people who was in it at the beginning and then sort of you know dipped, and then sort of like near the beginning saw the insanity. Once we figured out he was really insane, followed it for a while and then dipped out. But now I'm catching up on what he did in his life. I mean, I dipped out a long time ago. Like I guess around the time his father died would have been the time would have been around the time I I stopped paying attention to him. But and but then I dipped back in when one day when the day that it came out what he had done to his mom, he was trending on he was trending on Twitter, and I was trying to figure out what he what he what he had done that suddenly got people interested in him again when I had lost when he had just been that crazy guy making that stupid Sonic the Hedgehog, Pokemon knockoff comic back in the day. And so I've been sort of catching up with various documentaries and stuff trying to figure out how he got to this place where he thought that was a good idea. Stupid fresher mall. Move rhythmically. Stupid sandworm knockoff. Stupid sandworm knockoff. Which one is the repair button on? Yeah. But yeah. Um. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, that's repair. All right. But anyway, where's it going? But anyway, so I've been catching up, and one of the ways I've been catching up is, Geno Samuel's documentary, which has a new episode out, and I have to say, my worries about Chris Chan being back with his mom and being completely free and out of any sort of, halfway house or anything where his actions are being observed just increased exponentially because I did not realize. I mean, I had found out early on about, the whole dimensional merge thing and it being his idea of heaven and, his, and, he thinks he's going to be and he now and he thinks it's going to solve all his problems and everything. I mean, I knew about that. But what I didn't what I what I didn't realize was that he has idolized multiple serial killers and even a mass shooter, and he said what they were did was good because people need to die for the dimensional merge to happen. Now that is a huge red flag. I know most people think Chris is harmless and that he's too much of a coward to ever do anything, but it's always the guys who you think are cowards who end up being the who end up making, you know, trouble in my opinion. So that's a huge red flag to me, and a huge. And if you ask me, I really wish. I mean, I know they're supposed to be impartial and innocent until proven guilty, but I wish when they decide whether or not to put somebody, back out into society, they'd look at like their online history and see, hey, have they been calling for people to die? Because this is, to me, this is a really scary thing. You got a guy out there who now thinks, not only does he think he's Jesus, but he thinks when people die, they don't really die. He thinks they become sonic chews in a dimension that he thinks of as heaven. So he doesn't even really think that they're. So he doesn't even really, you know, he's never really coped with death on a rational level. Every time somebody he's cared about has died, he's had them reincarnated as a sonic chew in his little heaven of Quickville, which is really a horrifying totalitarian dictatorship. And so, yeah, this is really worrying that this guy is just out in public, just allowed to do whatever he wants, doesn't really have a mark on his criminal record, and we've seen him get violent in the past, and not just when the trolls. And I know some people think that all of Chris's problems are the trolls, and that he would be a perfect little angel if it weren't for those awful trolls who stifled his creativity and bullied him. And I'm not excusing anything the trolls did, but we had a long history of violence and stalking, and him putting curses that he thought would harm people. It doesn't matter that the curses are nonsense. Chris firmly believed, whenever he put out one of those curses, that somebody was being harmed by them. So, and, we even have him way back in the day. We even have him way back in the day. We know his parents got mad because he was demoted off the regular bus because there was some kid who he kept beating up on the regular school bus, so his school district put him on the short bus. So we can't say with certainty that he never harmed someone. I mean, he pepper sprays people. He pepper sprays people because he doesn't like the deepness of their male voice. So because they're a wrong gender, I mean, that's what he said. He didn't pepper spray that GameStop employee because of anything other than he didn't like his gender, and he thinks, and he's bought in to and he's bought into some nonsense about all men being evil warmongers, so any violent act, despite the fact that he is a man, he thinks of himself as a woman and thinks any violent act against a man is completely justified because all men are evil, and it's just one of, and it's like, and to me, it's just scary that somebody with this mentality who doesn't really understand what death is, who to get to his heaven thinks that people have to die, is now out in public. He's there with his mom, who we all know is frail and can't defend herself from him. And he could very well decide that she needs to be moved on for the dimensional merge to happen. And that is, to me, just the scariest thing going on right now. Before I was a little worried that he might kill his mom for selfish reasons, for his self-centered reasons of getting a house, but then again there was a part of my brain that thought maybe he can't even think that far ahead cuz Chris Chan isn't that good at planning. But after watching the latest episode of the Geno Samuels documentary that's out there right now, I have to say I am really worried he's going to kill Barb or him or somebody else, or he might even try to move himself onto the Sonic Chew dimension. I mean it's a real possibility, and that that would just really be messed up. I mean, it would just it would just I mean, I can just imagine him deciding that, oh, it's these people in my town. I mean, what if he decides that, say, Michael Snyder or somebody he's had a grudge with just happens to need to be moved on to another dimension for the merge to happen? And he shows up. I don't know if the game place still exists. I mean, comic book stores aren't doing well, but I've seen I mean, the last comic book store in my area went out of business. But but I do know that tabletop gaming seems to be doing okay, and places where people can tabletop game. So I don't know if the game place is still there, but in a town like that, I'm sure he can find out what. I'm sure if he doesn't already know, he knows where Michael Snyder or other people who he blames, or I don't know. He go. Here's the thing: it's hard to know who Chris blames for the problems in his life, it seems to change. Like the since it seems to change like the since it seems to change with his mood and how he's feeling that day. And I'm just afraid he's going to decide that somebody who wronged him is the person whose body. I mean, he seems to think that people's bodies can block the dimensional merge, and he really wants this merge to happen. So I'm just afraid he's going to decide to move somebody on because it's going to be, ugh. And if that happens, I mean, to me, everything. I think the only people who ever honestly tried to who who whoever really whoever really tried to do the right thing when it came to Chris Chan were the school board that when he was very young tried to put him in a class where he could learn all the things. Here's the thing: Chris complains that there weren't any classes to teach him to be social and such, and teach him about dating, and he wants to require dating education classes and all that. He blames that, but he then also curses out the one school board that wanted to put him in classes that would have done just that for him. And his parents ran away because they equated it to, I don't know, did they think he was going to be. I mean, his parents claimed to be so smart, and they claimed to have so much knowledge of how, and especially his mother seems to think she knows everything about the world because of the places she was secretary at. But did they really think that putting Chris in a special class for people with developmental disabilities, they use his. It's really strange how Chris's family treats his autism because they use it as a crutch, and every time somebody does something they don't like, they claim that that person, just hates people with autism, and they blame anything bad Chris does on autism. But at the same time, they will they at the same time they then insist he's normal enough that he doesn't need any special classes, and they actually run away from the school district where they wanted to put him in a special class, where he could have learned all the things that they blamed the school for not teaching him. So, did they just think that going to a special class was like he was going to get locked in an asylum, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or something? Was that their reference point, despite the fact that they claim to be such super smart, super important people who have who who the internet couldn't exist without them? Is that what they really thought? And if so, I have to say they let him down and cut out the only people who could have possibly helped him, because I think that was really the only chance he ever had in his life of getting help. I think after they ran away, I really think I really think that the that after that point, other people think that it's when the trolls found him or when he invented Sonic Chew or any number of other things. No, I think the point when Chris got beyond all help was when his parents decided that it was too dangerous for him to get help, and they inflated his ego with all these tales of being royalty and all this stuff. I think between the ego of his parents and them refusing to get him help because they seem to be afraid of it, that it was that he was just doomed at that point. Uh, and that seems, and I know that probably seems, I know that probably seems really bleak. But then again, what about Chris Chan's life isn't bleak? I mean, that just to me that I think that's what it. I think that's what it was. I think it was that his one chance to get help. After that, he was always gonna. He and his parents were. I think that set the pattern of he and his parents were always going to be too stubborn, and they were always going to baby him. And honestly, I honestly think that and winning that contest that made him feel so incredibly special, and where his parents told him, "Oh yeah, you won this because you're the most important." Where I mean, you know, I mean, all he had to do was something that I would have found trivial when I was 6. Yet he was 12, and he and his parents are talking about it as though he just split the atom or something. And here's the thing: everything I say about Chris Chan, I'm saying it from the point of somebody who's so autistic. I can't I can't drive a car to this day. I'm in my late 30s and I can't drive a car. I have to ride a bus for disabled people, for people with disabilities, and I've had my share of breakdowns, and sometimes, and I guess that's why I find Christian's story so fascinating. Is as I can see some of myself in Christian, and I guess I'm just, and I guess I'm just like, I'm just, um, I'm just, I just find it. I just find it interesting because this shows, I mean, not everything was done right in my case either. I don't think anybody ever does everything right. And what's more, I mean, I was diagnosed in the mid 90s, and even then it seemed like people didn't know much. So, it seems like to me, people probably knew even less in the 80s when Chris was diagnosed, and even more mistakes were made. But it seems like the only chance he ever had was blocked, and it was probably because because his parents are so old that they didn't understand what was going on. And to me, here's the thing: is a lot of people think his parents just didn't love him or anything. I don't think I really buy that. I think it's something much sadder than that. I think they cared about him to the extent that they thought that they thought he was this super special person, and they treated him like that to the extent that it ruined him. And they were so scared of somebody doing and they were so scared for his safety, and they were so scared of somebody doing something horrible to him that they missed out on the one chance they had of actually getting some of actually you know helping him. And that's just sad. But Now, but now here's the thing. A lot of people want to say well, what are we, they don't know what we're supposed to do now because, and they're like, and yeah, and yes, I feel pity for Chris, but it's possible to feel pity for somebody while also seeing them as a danger and knowing that for the good of society, I hate this is why I hate biotics in Mass Effect 1 because it's just a pause battle button basically. Their only attack just causes you to fall over like this, and then you just have to wait for the timer for your time of being knocked out to go out. But anyway, yeah. So to me, that's the real tragedy is that now he's a now he's a now I can't deny he's a raping monster who idolizes serial killers and mass shooters and has a delusion where death isn't and lives in a delusional world where death isn't even real thanks to his parents being afraid of the school system and not knowing what to do with him, so they let TV raise him. And now this tragic figure is is a danger to everyone in society, and it's just sad. But we need to, but obvious, like raising our voices really high in an enclosed space. It's I mean, it just seems like, but it's like, what are we? But it's like, I think it's the duty of the law at this point to, instead of keep giving Chris Chan chances, his community and especially his mother need to be protected from him. It's past the point. I mean, you have a guy. I mean, yeah. Sorry to start this dark, but good night. It's I just finished that. I just watched that latest episode, and it's like, good night. This guy is idolizing serial killers and saying people need to die for the merge to happen. That's the scariest thing I think I've encountered in a long time. Because here's the thing, I feel like I'm watching the next mass shooter or something, or build up, and everybody knows it's coming, but nobody can do anything about and that's just uncomfortable to me. It's like, it's just, it's just like, I mean, I don't know what needs to be done, but clearly, and that's why I'm just upset that they apparently couldn't get enough evidence. I'm guessing because the main evidence came from Isabella Jank, and what's more, Chris Chan's mom probably is so out of it she couldn't really testify in court or stand up to cross examination by a defense attorney. That's how he got off. That's how he got off. But I would have accepted it if he just got some sort of conviction with maybe a suspended sentence as long as he stayed in some sort of home where they would monitor him for the rest of his life. I think that would have been the greatest thing. That would have been the that would have been the best possible outcome to Chris Chan's story at this point, and I think we missed it. I think we missed out on it, and now there's going to be and now I feel like we're just in the calm before the next storm. That there's going to be some other tragedy or event that's going to put him on the front pages nationwide after this, and it's going to be and when it happens, it's going to be a real problem. And and it's just going to give us problems. It's just a problem. But eh, yeah, I don't know. I just have this uncomfortable feeling that we're just waiting for the next shoe to drop, and that right now we think the worst thing to happen in history is what he did to his mom, but then we'll just see that as the buildup. I mean, we had other moments where, like when he hit Michael Snyder with his car, or when he set his house on fire, or when, he pepper sprayed that guy. We all thought that, I mean, we probably all thought that that was going to be the worst moment. And now I don't now I just don't know. I just feel. I just. What the hell? But I'm just like, yeah. I have to say, one of the things I prefer in Mass Effect 2 is that they actually gave you things to do in your quarters, and it doesn't look like the place you go to hang yourself. Also, I like that they brought up the lights. I mean, I know this is dramatic, but this does not look like a place I would want to live. I mean, I think they were going for an old style submarine, feel, a submarine feel here, but it didn't really, it didn't really work since, on a submarine you have to keep noise to a minimum, which means and you have limited battery, you have like limited life for the batteries and stuff, so there's a reason for that. Here, it doesn't make any sense. Since hiding in space, I mean, you don't really have to. Are we really scared of this? I mean, alright. Um, yeah, we're gonna have to take a. Uh, we're gonna have to take a pause here, and I'll probably I'll probably be back to do some more in 20 minutes or so, but I'm gonna have to pause it for now for reasons. Yeah.